ain't made an art of the man. The new knowledge of power. My boy prayer. Knowledge is power, and power is knowledge. Break the chains and experience the knowledge. Find power in power, and truth in knowledge. Once you know, no one can take your knowledge. I read book after book, studying the power, spent hour after hour, learning black power, destroying lie after lie. For the power found self in these pages of conceptual power. I found the truth and I'm not letting go. Frederick Douglass and Booker T found power. Nat Turner found truth in his darkest hour. Mama Harriet set us free and stood for we. In these pages I found power in our history. UEP birthed the panther in me. In me, never let a fascist pig carry me, not me. Revolutionary thoughts, all I read. Normal for my soul, keep my spirit on high. Revolutionary thought is always on the rise. Yeah, it's always on the rise. Love. Knowledge is power, and power is knowledge. Break the chains and experience the knowledge. Find power in power, and truth in knowledge. Once you know, no one can take your knowledge. I read book after book, studying the power, spent hour after hour, learning black power, destroy lie after lie. For the power found self in these pages of conceptual power. Our problem was never us, our problems was them. Them being the ones who robbed and took us, kings and queens, nation builders. From stolen legacy to Anthony Browder, building institutions with black knowledge. Build black libraries for black scholars, building black minds, urban philosophy, urban black reads every one place. Black owned bookstores, we support your space. To all black authors, we give much thanks. Knowledge is power, and power is knowledge. Break the chains and experience the knowledge. Find power in power, and truth in knowledge. Once you know, no one can take your knowledge. I read book after book, studying the power, spent hour after hour, learning black power, destroy lie after lie. For the power found self in these pages of conceptual power. Our problem was never us. Our problem was never us. Our problem was never us. Ooh. Knowledge is power, our power is knowledge. Break the chains and experience the knowledge. Find power in power, and truth in knowledge. Once you know, no one can take your knowledge.
The peace and love family. You just heard a track by PLM's own Baba Adisa. Man, when Baba sent me this, I said, Baba, I gotta play this. You know, I mean, he dropped so many jewels during the song. You know, he shouted out references, right? Books that you can get to elevate your mind, books that will heal your soul, books that can advance you and your family. He shouted out the names of ancestors that if you aren't familiar with them, you should get familiar with them. So peace and love, family. Welcome to another powerful discussion with your sister, Dr. Ma'at. Before I get today's discussion started, I always like to present the community with resources, okay? So make sure that you head on over to consciousingenuity.org. That is consciousingenuity.org. Let me throw the website. I want to put it on the screen as I'm saying it to you. Hold on. I didn't throw it in the back chat. Hold on. Let me put this on the screen, okay? Visit consciousingenuity.org, okay, to explore all of our youth empowerment programs. All right, we offer Conscious Ingenuity, which is a year-round STEAM program that is science, technology, engineering, art, agriculture, mathematics. That's what we focus on. And we use those fields to build character, confidence, and capabilities within our youth. All right, and that's a year-round program. Make sure that you head on over to consciousingenuity.org to explore this particular program. We also offer the virtual UACI STEM camp in partnership with the Uhuru Academy. Salute to Baba Amin and his lovely divine compliment, Mama and Koyo. This is a seasonal STEM camp. It's virtual. We have students from across the United States, okay, from New York to California, who participate in this camp. And this camp actually starts on June the 30th. It ends on July the 11th. We have 50 students this year, 50 children, 50 youth, 50 Black minds that we are going to impact literally from the U.S., from New York to California. All right. And they're going to learn about cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, machine learning, the fundamentals of coding, while also learning about our ancestors' contributions to these fields. Ashe? All right. And so I would say come here and learn more. You can, but you can't enroll your child, okay? Because registration is over. All right. Next up, we have the Asafo training camp and the Agoji training camp, which is offered in partnership with PLM, the Pan African Liberation Movement out of Baltimore. Salute to Baba Imhotep Fatiu and his lovely divine complement, Mama Ife Fatiu and the Fatiu family. All right. And so we offer these programs, okay, where we develop, character, okay, life skills. We cultivate life skills, character, cultural enrichment, all right, critical thinking, and more. All right. And slots are going fast, family. Slots are going fast. This program is going to start the last week of July. Okay. And it is in Baltimore. It is an in-person. These are in-person camps. One is an all-boy camp. One is an all-girl camp. All right. Registration is open, but registration will be closing, I think, in the next couple of weeks. And we already at 10 slots for the Agoji training camp. We actually are offering 20 slots. 10 of those are already filled. Okay. And so for the Asafo training camp, I believe that 7 or 8 boys have already signed up. And so these slots are going fast, family. So I'm not, when I put this stuff out there, it's imperative that you hop on it. Okay. So make sure that you head on over to consciousingenuity.org to take advantage of our youth empowerment programs. All right, family, I got a shout out. I see that my audience family has pulled up on me. Peace and love to Rock City, New York. I see you, family. Peace and love to Tim Jones. Tim Jones said always a good time with the family. Ashe. See, man, the Fatius, they never disappoint. I see Asafo Fatius in the building. Peace and love to you. I see our warrior Shemsu Netch is in the building. Peace and love to you. The Queen Mother Marcia Penda is in the building. Peace and love to you, Queen. And I made every word that I text you in our inbox. I'm going to see to it that your young warrior, like my little nephew, I'm going to make sure that he get a full ride, okay? I'm going to do everything that I can because you're doing a marvelous job raising your youth. And I'm grateful for you, your husband, and your family. Shout out to Nama X. Peace and love to you, Nama X. He said, peace and black love. The war is in everything we do. Ashe. He says, great, empowering song. Absolutely, man. That song, man, I hit him up. I was like, Bob, I got to play it. You know what I mean? Oh, someone said there's no sound on IG. Oh, man, hit on over here, family. My IG family that's watching. My IG family that's watching, hit on over. Someone said, can you post a link? It won't let me post a link for some reason. Let me see if I can do that. It hyperlink it. Like when you click on it, you won't be able to click on it. That's what I'm saying. So I will hold on. I'll see what I can do, Queen. She's like, hold up, send me the link and tell me if you can click on it. If not, just go to YouTube and type in Truth to Power Talk with Dr. Ma'at, and it'll pop up. All right. So I'm gonna try my best. I'll try my best to here, I'm gonna try my best. Goodness gracious. Here it is. Here's the link. Let me know, Queen. Oh, someone said on their IG is working fine. Someone said on my IG is working fine. Shout out to my IG family, man. If you hit on over to YouTube, I can show your comments in the chat. And that's the link. I don't know if you're going to be able to cut and paste it, but that is the link. But my IG family, hit on over and participate in the chat, okay, on YouTube, so I can show your your comments. Salute to the great Dr. Dennis Asar Winkler in the building. He said, blessings, Dr. Baba Imhotep in the chat family. Peace and love to you. And I saw that you spoke. I think you spoke at one of those colleges. You were the keynote speaker. And I see y'all there doing your thing, Doc. Peace and love to you, man. I see Knowledge Born Alive in the building. He said, blessed African Liberation Day. Honors to my favorite African warrior scholars, Dr. Oya Ma'at and Baba Imhotep Fatiu. Keep speaking truth to power. He said, like, share, subscribe, and donate, family. Donate, family. Oh, it says your sound is out on my IG, man. I don't know. I don't know what to do about that, brother. Henry Mars said, this is an amazing idea. Ashe. I see the great Dr. Craig Samuels in the building. He says, a BB Fahodie. Peace, Dr. Ma'at, Baba Imhotep in the chat. I see Terry Love is in the building. Peace and love to you, Terry Love. Said, peace and love, Queen. Ashe. Okay, that's fine, man. It's nothing else I can do, man, except invite folks over to YouTube. So, but I appreciate you bringing that, to my attention, brother. Peace and love to you. I see Mama Sherry Shabazz is in the building. She said, peace and blessings. All right, family. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on a mighty, mighty warrior. And if you don't know him, you should know him. His name is Baba Imhotep Fatiu. And if you haven't gotten his books, make sure that you get his book, especially this book right here, Scientific Pan-Africanism, The Redemption, Reclamation, and Restoration of Pan-Africanism. And look at this, family. Forward by your girl, Dr. Oya Ma'at, an introduction by Al Baba, Baba Nwalimu Barudi. So there's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of misinformation, a lot of disinformation that is circulating online about Pan-Africanism. You got folks ignorantly saying that Pan-Africanism is dead. You have people saying that Pan-Africanism is it wasn't reciprocal. It's not reciprocal. You know, we started the idea of Pan-Africanism, but it's never been reciprocal. We've never. That's one thing. Another thing that people are saying is that it's no longer beneficial in 2025. And so I had to bring on Baba to clear this up, man. And he wrote a wonderful piece, and I'm going to drop the link in the chat, okay, where you can order this now. I actually also ordered 10 copies from Baba, and I want to give them out to some of my folks. Okay, so let's try to get as many people in here. Let's get as many people in here as possible. If you share, and you get a lot of folks up in here, I'll make sure that I mail you a book, family. All right, I'll make sure I mail you a book. All right, so without further ado, I'm getting ready to bring on our warrior, our leader, our Baba Imhotep Fatiu.
Let's combat and fight back with Meltrax. The war of the minds, they want control of the masses. And Common Core, they dumb us down in the classes. Without knowledge, we can't gain access. Build with the elders, take notes and write classics. We keep whining on the block, how it's gonna stop. Let's start supporting our own, make their supply drop. We buy stocks, then we buy blocks. Cause we know the truth and we tuned in to Dr. Maya.
A BB Fahodie, a BB Tumi, a BB Wan Wan. Peace to all of my thinkers, truth speakers, and truth seekers. Welcome to another Truth to Power Talk with your sister, Dr. Ma'at. And tonight I have with me another powerful guest, but he is no stranger to this community, Baba Imhotep Fatiu. Peace and love to you, warrior. How you doing? Oh, Baba, you're muted. There you go, Baba.
Apologies. Peace and love. I'm well. I'm excited. And as always, I'm honored to be on the show.
Oh, peace and love to you, Bob. It's always an honor to have you. You're extremely busy. I know we were kind of hitting and missing for the past couple of months because you dropped your book a few months ago. I think you released it sometime in like January or February.
Yes.
And, I know you've been busy and traveling, teaching, writing. You're raising a family. You have a beautiful family, beautiful wife, beautiful sons. And so you're always on the move, and in conjunction, you got your community activism. So it's a lot going on, but just glad that you were able to make it today. And I mean, I just want to share, I want to be candid with the audience. You actually had something scheduled today and you were like, look, I'll move some things around to be present. And I want you to know that I'm grateful for that. And thank you so much for that, Baba. Family, right now, take a moment out to thumb up this video, thumb it up, thumb it up, thumb it up. Also share this video. Okay. We want to each one teach one. And the way to do that in 2025, we can do that by simply posting links on social media. And also, in our group chats, a lot of us belong to group chats. Take the link, post it in your group chat. Okay. Let's feed some minds tonight. And also, family, subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so that whenever I go live, you will be notified. And also, family, I've created a Truth to Power Talk playlist, brought on a lot of our greats, a lot of our scholars, a lot of our warriors. And so make sure that you check out some of those previous talks in the archives. Baba, before we jump into Pan-Africanism, there's a few things I wanted to kind of pick your brain about. And I love picking your brain, especially when I call you on the telephone, Baba, because it's always, I tell folks, I said, man, when every time I engage you, like it's not a moment when I haven't engaged you that I didn't walk away feeling motivated, feeling affirmed, and also learning something new. That's what I always get whenever I engage you. I feel motivated or inspired. I feel affirmed, and then I learn something new. And so I love picking your brain about certain things. So we've been inundated with this whole narrative now. The mainstream media is spreading this narrative about 59 South Africans. They're calling them Afrikaners, which I do take offense to. But anyway, they're saying it's 59 Afrikaners that are fleeing to America, and they're saying they're fleeing a white genocide, right? It happening in South Africa. And the South Africans are like, what are you talking about? You know, they're coming out publicly saying, we're not harming anybody. If anything, we've been harming ourselves. There's a lot of crime happening, but it's not, you know, racially, you know, it's not racial crime or racially targeted crime. It's just crime happening in South Africa. And then so the South African president recently came over here, Baba, and sat down with Trump. And Trump lied about a lot of things. Like he showed some video and said that it was a burial, you know, that was happening in South Africa of all these farmers that, you know, were victims of this genocide, and come to find out that's not true. He showed a photograph saying that, you know, it was, you know, he was presenting evidence, in other words, Baba, that it was a genocide going on. And the stuff that he presented was just malinformation, really. It was malinformation and misinformation. And so, Baba, I just ask you, Baba, what do you think the purpose is of them spreading this false narrative that it's a genocide happening in a white genocide happening in South Africa? Like, what do you think the purpose of this is?
So the first thing I would say is, like, I'm not familiar with the story, but to your question,
yes,
in terms of purpose, one of the ways in which people who set out to dominate other people are able to effectuate that and sustain it is through psychological warfare. And part of psychological warfare is disinformation. And disinformation is the intentional dissemination of information that's inaccurate about a situation to disorientate a population of people. So purpose is always, in this context, the purpose is always linked to psychological warfare, because the end result is the exploitation and the robbery of other people. And then exploitation in this context would be us. So it's about, how do we keep us disorganized and disoriented, and how do we keep others thinking incorrect about who we are? See, one of the things that's not talked about a lot is that one of the things Europeans did, I think Dr. Clark talked about it, but he used a different term, so I'm not going to use his term. He said one of the great achievements of the European was they colonized the information, right? That's Dr. Clark. I like to speak about it this way. I think one of those great successes of white people was their ability to export a false narrative to the world about Black people. So I think the narrative that they was able to disseminate throughout the world created a perception of us in the eyes of everybody else. So the purpose to create this false narrative is consistent with that. How do we create a narrative that maintains the demonization of Black people so others can see them as being demons, to justify whatever horrific acts that we want to exact against those people? It's in alignment with that.
Beautiful, Baba. I think, I agree 1,000% with what you're saying, because I'm like, it's a purpose, like you said. What is that purpose? Like you said, the continued domination of South African people, and to justify going in there. Yeah, we're backing. You know, it's a genocide going in there. They're using it to justify, like you said, going in there, you know, aggressively. And so, Baba, I agree with you 1,000%. And then also, Baba, right now we're seeing with this administration, the erasure, or the attempted erasure of Black history. And so recently I was informed that at the Smithsonian, at the African American Museum of History and Culture, right, by the Smithsonian down in DC,
Yes.
I was recently informed that Trump signed some executive order in which he stated that his objective was to bring truth and sanity to American history. And so with that order, they're asking that certain museums take down, certain exhibits, pertaining to civil rights and slavery. I was told that, Queen Mother Harriet Tubman, her hymns were removed. The Narrative of a Slave by, Frederick Douglass, his stuff got removed. It's just different things, different artifacts that were at the museum. Now, the museum came out and said that they did not remove these things because of the executive order, but you got J.D. Vance, who's sitting on the board, and I don't know why he's on the board of the Smithsonian African American Museum, but anyway, he's on the board, and so the museum is coming out saying, well, no, we didn't remove these things because of Trump's executive order. But Baba, what are your thoughts about them attempting to erase Black history? What do you think the purpose is? Again, going back to purpose, and I think it's kind of in line with what you just said, but what are your thoughts about their attempt to erase our history?
The first thing I would say is that to answer the question, it's consistent with what they've always done. They've always attempted to eradicate the history of Black people. To be an oppressor, that's one of your ongoing charges, is to stomp out the history of the people that you seek to dominate. Because history is power. There's a power in history. When people organically know who they are and understand where they've come from, that in and of itself gives people power to not go for any trash. But when people don't know who they are or where they've come from, you're more likely to subject yourself to and submit to trash. So to perpetuate the destruction of Black people on all levels, it's important to ensure that Black people never find out who they are. So if I have to do that from the executive office, that's what I'll do. If I have to do it from the school systems, that's what I'll have to do. If I have to do it from putting out an executive order to take it out of libraries, then that's what I'll do. If we have to rewrite it and write them out, then that's what I'll do. Because our task is to ensure that they never know who they are. Because we need them. In whatever the capacity it may be. Some people say they don't need us no more. They try and get rid of us. No, they need us, because if we are completely exterminated, then they're going to fight and kill themselves. Because they are nothing but a bunch of warring people. You know what I'm saying? So even to prevent from them destroying themselves, they need a buffer. They need a punching bag, a perpetual punching bag, a perpetual stepping mat. You know what I'm saying? That's who we are. So yeah, they may not necessarily need our labor anymore, like some of us argue, but they need us for their own psychological well-being, to keep from killing themselves. Because make no mistake about it, they are inherently a warring people. If they don't got nobody else to war upon, they're going to war upon themselves.
And history has shown that. Like history has literally has shown what you're saying. Like you ain't making it up. He ain't making it up, family. History has literally has shown what he's saying. And Bob, a lot of folks were, and this is still, in connection with the erasure of Black history. A lot of folks were celebrating this week or the week before when the Nordaway plantation was burnt down. They said it was a plantation, and it was actually built by over 150 enslaved Africans, and it caught fire and burned down. They said, I was told that they changed this plantation into some sort of like resort. First it was a museum, then they changed it into a resort. People were getting married on the plantation. But a lot of Black folks were on social media. They like, burn it down. The ancestors are rejoicing right now. And I don't know, maybe I just have an unpopular opinion, Baba, but I didn't like the fact that it was burned down. I like the stuff still in my face. Like I want the history to be there. Like even with different schools, you know how they're changing the names of schools that were named after Confederate generals, and they're taking statues down and they're renaming holidays. I want them to keep, for me, and like I said, Bob, this may be an unpopular opinion, keep it up there, because I want to preserve that history. I don't want people to forget what they have done, what the Civil War was about. I don't want that erasure. So when the plantation burnt down, I can understand why Black folks were rejoicing. I would have rejoiced if we would have burned it down back then. Not I think that it was built in 1859. Not almost 200 years later. Now we're rejoicing that it's being burnt down. I would like that type of history to be preserved. You get what I'm saying, Baba? Because I don't want us to ever forget. I would use Columbus Day as an opportunity to educate the youth in my family about who Columbus was, right? Who, these different things. Oh, that's a Confederate general. Let's talk about that. So for me, Baba, I'm not a fan of tearing down the statues, renaming holidays, and renaming schools for the sake of progress. So what are your thoughts on that, Baba? What were your thoughts on that? Or if you're familiar with the story.
No, I'm not familiar with the burning, but I understand the point that you are making. I believe that the level of the work that needs to be done for Black people is multi-layered, and it's multi-layered, and it's replete through and through with trauma. And so we are responding to trauma in different ways because we've adapted to it so much that we don't even know that we are living with the trauma. So we see all these different responses because we don't have the knowledge around why. Some structures, even though those structures may be parts of things that we deem to be demoralizing, some structures has to remain in place. Like every structure cannot be torn down. Some structures have to remain in place because it allows us to vicariously live through the experience to be motivated and inspired to do more with our lives now. Because if structures are ripped down, then you can be kind of wooed to sleep in a false sense of security, right? We need some structures to remain as reminders, and also so we can see and get an idea of what others have went through. Because if you don't have a concept of what it is, then you can't have a true appreciation for it. And that's the reason why we say things like, "Oh, we not our ancestors." That's because we got a misunderstanding of who our ancestors were.
That's right.
But that statement, I understand what you are attempting to say, but at the core of that statement is disrespect. And even though that's not the intent when people say it, but it's disrespect. And that disrespect follows a historical ignorance. See, there's a historical ignorance that's birthing that type of disrespect because our ancestors were not who you think they were when you make such a statement. You know what I'm saying? So some structures got to remain. They need to be there.
Yeah, no doubt, Bob. And I just had a conversation with my cousin. Shout out to Malika. She was saying that. She said I had a person in my family, Bob, who said, we ain't our ancestors. And I was like, no, cuz we actually are. And I sent her a video that I did about a few years ago on I'm Not My Ancestors. And she hit me back and she was like, dang, cuz I that came from a place of ignorance. She was like, I'll never say it again. I'm gonna make that adjustment. So anyway, wanted to pick your brain about those things, Bob. So let's get into your book, Scientific Pan-Africanism, the Redemption, Reclamation, and Restoration of Pan-Africanism. First, I want to ask you this, Baba. Why did you write the book? What made you sit down and say, I need to write this book?
That's a great question. So the thinking began in 2003. So I really began thinking about it in 2003, and it came after reading a lot of books about Pan-Africanism, just studying and listening, different authors and different people talk about it. And one of the things that I noticed is that there was a lot of confusion. The first thing I noticed. The second thing I noticed is that the confusion was linked to the fact that, at this particular time period, I had not come across anyone who kind of laid out like a definitive structure. I had read a lot of the history of Pan-Africanism, but not necessarily someone kind of outlining like the structure. It's like hitting like its key principles in terms of, what it is, what it looked like, what it should be articulating, right? So I really didn't come across that. I always came across like a lot of the history and just being able to discern it from studying other individuals who were Pan-Africanists. And so as the years, went on and passed on, talking to other people here in Baltimore City, things of that nature. So in 2009, I did a lecture called The Resurrection of Pan-Africanism. A lot of people don't remember that, but I did that lecture, and I did it in conjunction with Soul Survivors Nation here in Baltimore City. So I did a lecture called the Resurrection of Pan-Africanism. And because I felt like that if we're going to do this work, there need to be a clearly defined ideology that we are operating from, because no people that's moving towards any type of liberation or domination, they're not moving without an ideology. An ideology is guiding them, right? So I said, there need to be an ideology. And I realized that so much confusion was around Pan-Africanism. So I say, I'm a preface scientific to Pan-Africanism solely to distinguish it from all the misconfusion out there. And secondly, I want to let people know that Pan-Africanism essentially is a social science, whether we recognize it like that or not, but it is. It's a social science. It's a science in its own right. So I wanted to write the book to bring forth clarification and elaboration on what those core principles are, what it look like, what the meat of it is. And I wanted to clear up, the one thing I wanted to clear up is that Pan-Africanism is more than what many people began to define as being just an objective. And most people say the objective, it's just an objective. It's just, the unification of Africa, you know what I'm saying? Which is a fundamental feature of it, but that's not the totality of it. Like Pan-Africanism in and of itself is a total ideology. So I wanted to write the book to clarify that. And I wanted to utilize certain points in history by those individuals who articulated Pan-Africanism in the very beginning stages of it, to use some of what they were saying to make the case that it's ideological. So that's what the book was about.
Okay, and so Baba, do me this. For some people who were watching, and like, I remember you and I were having a conversation on the phone, and you said if you ask 10 different people to define Pan-Africanism, you'll get 10 different definitions. So how do you define Pan-Africanism? Some people just say, "Oh, Pan is all Africa," and they just kind of give you this general definition. So how would you define it in words?
That's actually a great question. And it's funny because the book is the definitional outline of it, because it's something that can't really be defined succinctly, because that's how our confusions come, because we got this broad thing, and then we struggle with this English language to put it in these small tidbits, right? But for the purpose of this discussion and for your question, but I want everyone to know that the book is the definitional layout of what it is. So to fully understand it, read through the book. Now, for the purpose of your question, I would say Pan-Africanism it would be the systematic and organized thought process that drives us to seek the unification of African people throughout the world on the basis of our shared ideology in terms of our Africanity, on our shared conditions, on our shared history, right? So Pan-Africanism, it starts from the premise that African people are one people throughout the world, and they share the same basic conditions. And on the basis of those conditions, these African people should be striving to be unified in such a way that they can bring about the sovereignty of African people worldwide. Essentially, Pan-Africanism is about, the upliftment and the advancement of the African world.
So Baba, let me ask you this: what makes it a social science? Then I'm listening to your definition.
What makes it a social science?
What makes it a social science?
Because everything about it is social, right? So it becomes a social science because you think of when you look at it, like the function. So if I say African people, the upliftment of African people, the advancement of African people, right? We're dealing with something that's social. So even when I get into the components of Pan-Africanism, and I lay the components out, the historical component, people makes history, right? History doesn't make itself. It's made by people, right? The history of a people is the product of a people actively asserting their will on their environment to secure, protect, and advance themselves. Right? So people create their history. People create culture. So that's another component of scientific Pan-African culture, right? When you think about politics, which is a political component, politics is essentially about management of resources, power, and things of nature. Why do we manage these things? Why do we organize these things for what? The advancement of a group of people. Right. So everything about scientific Pan-Africanism is about African people. It's a social thing in one sense, right? It's a social thing in one sense. It's also ideological. It's also economic. It's also political, right? So it's all of those things. So it's something, in terms of a science, it's something that can be studied. Like you can clearly study it because we know there's an entry point for it in human history. There's an entry point. So prior to the year 1900, we don't have the word as a political term. So there's an entry point, and we can go and say, well, before that, this didn't exist. This came here. And then there's a conference in 1900 in the month of July. What were they talking about? So as a science, we can see that trajectory from there all the way through. And then because of that, we can see the different people who added on to it, who advanced it, who kind of got in its way, or who derailed it. But we can see all of that, and all that can be studied. And from studying all of that, like I put in this book, there are certain things that we can deduce from all of the actions of those who were true to it. So whether we start with Paul Cuffey, who I define as being a Pan-African antecedent in the late 1700s, where we start with Cuffey and go all the way down. Let's say you go down to Kwame Ture in the 1970s. Okay. We talk about from 1790, so let's say to 1970. Almost a 200-year span of individuals who demonstrated consistently certain principles as it relates to the upliftment of the African world. That can be clearly observed and studied.
Okay. All right, Baba. And what are these? You keep saying that it's ideology. So what are the set of ideas that make up, or that constitute? That's the word I was looking for. Okay, constitute Pan-Africanism. Yeah.
So some of those ideas essentially would be African people will have a shared history. It's a shared history. African people, not only do we have a shared history, we have a shared set of social, political, and economic conditions that we are contending with. Essentially, that's that. We also have a shared enemy or shared forces that's pushing against us. Now, they're not different. It's the same. Across space and time and continent, it is the same. So the forces that's ravished in Africa are the same forces that we're dealing with here in the United States of America. And that's why Malcolm X went to Africa and had this conversation, because he understood that and realized that. Had let them know, like, hey, it's the same. You know what I'm saying? Same forces, right? Seeking the worldwide advancement of African people. Now, I know we get into we can get into like everybody ain't African, but like the ideology is clear. So we know that in any group of people, you're gonna have betrayals and stuff like that. But that don't have nothing to do with the overall ideology, because the ideologues or the people who originated it, or the thinking is always for the good of the whole. Now you know that within any whole, you're gonna have bad seeds. So we don't have to get into everybody not this, that, and other. Once we truly understand what it is, the ideology is gonna automatically just cut folk out who don't subscribe to it. Automatically. So in addition to that, it's African. Matter of fact, and like in the book, I laid out in the book, I'm glad you asked it, but it's African-centered to the core, because at the very base of it, when it first was articulated, it was always about, the upliftment and advancement of the African race. They used the term African race back then. That's how they worded it. But we know what they meant by that. So they would say African race. So they automatically include. They knew it was about us. They didn't say the Chinese race. They didn't say the European race. They didn't say any of that. They said this thing here is about the African race, right? So we got to be able to see ourselves as one people throughout the world,
right?
And even though we may not always get along, We may not even like each other. That doesn't mean we're not one people. We're still one people. And even though you might got some rats in there, some traitors in there, you have that at times. You know what I'm saying? We don't necessarily got to say that they are road dogs, but they're in there. You know, so you have that the oneness. So when you talk about Pan-Africanism, we talking about being able to acknowledge the connectedness of who we are and the working towards the unification, the upliftment, the advancement, and the sovereignty of those people. So at the core, that's that. Now, there was a time period when sovereign, or we talked about Africa, a lot of times people didn't include us in the diaspora. But in my book, I make a distinction, not a distinction, but like a clarification or an extension on sovereignty. So sovereignty have to include the diaspora. So we're not just fighting for solely the unification of Africa at the expense of us that's in the diaspora, because all of us in the diaspora are not going back to Africa. So just because all of us are not going back to Africa doesn't mean that we're not fighting for us, because it's what, man, there's a whole lot of us in the diaspora, right? So this sovereignty is a sovereignty that includes us. So it's more so thinking of it in terms of like along the lines of the AU, where the AU now recognizes 6 regions of Africa: the central, the north, the south, the east, the west, and the diaspora as being a 6th region of Africa. So even they acknowledge it. They may not be acting upon it, but they acknowledge it. So we, and how we think and say, yes, Africa is our land base, but that's not to the exclusion of who we are in the diaspora. So we are part of that. So that sovereignty is a sovereignty for Africa and for those of us in the diaspora.
Okay, and so these were the ideas that you laid out in your book, Scientific Pan-Africanism, correct?
Yes, some of them, yes.
Some of them, okay. So there are others that you expand. Look, Baba, you said I ain't trying to give you everything. I ain't trying to give the book away. So Baba, you mentioned Pan-African antecedents, right? And so you went all the way back to the 1700s with Cuffy, right? Yeah. And you were saying that so he espoused what we would call Pan-Africanism back then in the 1700s. When did it actually become the term, Pan-Africanism? So you had these Pan-African antecedents who came along and espoused these ideas. When did you begin to hear the term Pan-Africanism?
So we really begin to hear the term in the true sense of the word, in the popular sense of the word. You really get that in the year 1900.
Okay.
You get that through Sylvester Williams and his organization, the African Association, which was the principal organization responsible for the Pan-African Conference. And that conference happened in July in the year 1900. And it was called the Pan-African Conference. And it was there and after there that we pretty much get Pan-Africanism as a solidified political concept. And that became a part of the Black liberation lexicon, but what I like to think of and what I like to do is talk about what I define as being antecedents. And I got the term antecedent. The only other person I heard use the term antecedent was Dr. John Henry Clark.
Okay.
I read an essay that he wrote. I think I read it probably like 20 years ago. And in that essay, he was talking about, Pan-African antecedents, but he didn't go through like a list of people like what I did. He was just talking about trying to help us to understand that before Pan-Africanism as we know it emerged, there were people who expressed the same type of sentiments. They didn't use the term Pan-Africanism because the term didn't exist.
Right.
They had sentiments and they had the same type of aspirations, which is a growing thing. So what I do in my book is I list 10 people who I call or define as being antecedents, because I believe that these 10 individuals and what they were doing and some of their ideals, and some of their principles and their sentiments were consistent with what came to be known as Pan-Africanism. So I do that to demonstrate the ideological roots of Pan-Africanism. So we can see like there's roots there. It didn't just come out of a void. It's coming out of a set of ideals and a type of thinking that was already generated. Case in point, like when Henry Sylvester Williams came to the United States of America, he came during a time period when one of the strongest Black voices, and where he came at was Henry McNeill Turner. There's no way that he can be in the United States of America at this time period in the area of Henry McNeill Turner with his bold Black voice talking about the need for a Black nation, Black immigration, Black this, Black that, a Black God, Black this, race patriotism. There's no way he didn't hear any of that. No way. There's no way he came and missed that. It's an impossibility.
Right.
So you're going to run across this. You're going to run across, individuals, even during this time period, you're going to run across Booker T. Washington and some of the things that he was saying then, on a down low, because these are the people. Because even Sylvester Williams, he consulted with Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington was supposed to attend the first Pan-African Conference, but he just didn't. Right?
He helped fund it. He helped fund, correct? Correct, Baba? Yeah, he helped fund it.
He put money to it. So when you got this history, you can see where, this stuff begins to bud from. When you can see that when you understand it, when you take your time and when you look and pay attention, and we're not quoting our feelings.
Right.
We're just looking and reading and studying. And then the deeper you go, you'll realize that Henry Sylvester Williams also ran into a Black woman in Africa. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when he was in Europe, she was from South Africa. Alice Kinloch, he ran into her. She was an activist. She was pushing, liberation for Black people. She was in Europe protesting against the mistreatment of African people in South Africa. So he runs across her, and he's like, whoa, man, she's interesting. She on point, she on fire. I like what she's talking about. He talks to her, and she helps to broaden his thinking around it. And then she go on and help create, him and her, created the African Association, which once again started the first Pan-African Conference. She was a part of that. You know what I'm saying? So when you're studying it correctly and you're seeing these people, you can see that Pan-Africanism, it did not come out of a void. It came out of there's a legacy. There's a legacy of Black people thinking about the unification and the advancement of African people throughout the world. Even if you read David Walker's Appeal, if you read it and look at the title, he said to the Black people or the colored people of the world.
Come on, Baba, teach.
He said
teach,
of the world.
Teach.
But particularly to those here in the United States of America. But he had a world vision. He was talking to all of us Black people. And you can go through all of them and you run across that. So all I do is I briefly deal with those. I deal with 10 of them briefly. From Cuffey first, and it's in a chronological order. I go from Paul Cuffey all the way down to Henry McNeill Turner. I get that out the way so you can see what they were saying. I use some of their quotes so you can see what they were saying, see their consistency and things. All of them was for immigration. All of them was like, get away from these white people. We talk about from Cuffey all the way down to McNeill Turner. And McNeill Turner died in 1915. And Paul Cuffey was around in the late 1700s. We talk about that long time period. And everybody in between said, listen, we got to get away from these white people. We need our own. All of them was pushing Pan-African sentiments. So I laid that out real good first and foremost. And then I go into the grounding of Pan-Africanism. I get into some of the grounding principles of it to let you know what the initial thinkers were thinking when they said, let's do the Pan-African Conference. What did they think? What was their agendas? And I put that there.
And Baba, correct me if I'm wrong. The first Pan-African Conference, was that in London or Paris? Well, it was London, correct?
Yes, it was in London.
It was London. I'm going over there in July. I can't wait to be right there, Baba, just to touch it. We're going to shout out to Baba Anthony T. Browder. I'm going with him over there. And we're supposed to be going to the site of where they had held the first Pan-African conference, I believe. And I believe that was in London. And so, yeah, Baba, so let me ask you this, and not even ask you. One thing I noticed in your book, and shout out to the family that's coming in. You know, we like 80 strong right now, family. I'm going to start giving out the books when it's, give me 100 folks. Give me 100 folks in the building, and you're going to see Dr. Mott go buck wild giving out books, okay? And I already see people putting in there, in the comment section, put me up too, Dr. Mott. Let's get some more folks in here. Give me 30 more people in here and you got it. Baba, I noticed in this text, not only did you talk about the men who helped shape Pan-Africanism, you talk about the females, Baba.
Yes.
You know, like a lot of times, and just being candid, it seems like when we talk about the work, we hear about the men, you know, and Professor James Small and I, we always have these conversations. We've had them privately and publicly. You always hear about what the men did, and you rarely hear about the women, you know. And Professor James Small, you know, when he talks, he said, yeah, you know, you hear about Garvey, Marcus Garvey, but they never talk to you about Henrietta Vinton Davis. He said the sister in Baltimore. That's me. And so he talked about Maggie Walker, the sister that, you know, owned her own bank. And so, Baba, a lot of times, you know, you hear about the work, you know, you hear about Martin, but you don't hardly hear about Coretta. You hear about Malcolm, hardly Betty Shabazz. You hear about Marcus Garvey, but it was his wife, Amy. That's how we got Life and Opinions. Was Opinions and Philosophies of Marcus Garvey. She put that out posthumously, but you don't hear that. You know, we don't hear that. We don't hear about the women. So, Baba, I just want to know what inspired you to say, you know what, in this, I need to mention those sisters that put in the work also. What
you want to know the truth?
Let me tell the truth, Baba. Tell the truth,
right? It's a true story, though, right?
All right.
You know, rock and roll. So what really happened is when you and Baba Baruti missed your deadline.
Okay.
And getting y'all piece back, right? Y'all missed your deadline, was no big problem, was no big deal. I was taking a shower. Because this is where I always connect with the ancestors, and I was taking a shower.
Me too, Baba. That's crazy. Me too.
True story. Taking a shower, and you know, the steam, everything was steaming, and something hit me. Something said, just like this. What I heard was feminine side of Pan-Africanism. And I said, I'm wiping, I stopped and said, feminine side of Pan-Africanism. Then I said, man, dang, I got some more writing, and I'm not finished. Because I thought I was done when I was waiting for y'all pieces. I said, dang, I'm not finished. So I said, how is this going to look? You know, how I'm laid this out. So I'm asking these questions. How should this be laid out? And it was like, you know, just lay it out. Just talk about Black women who were operating within the sphere of Pan-Africanism, who traditionally aren't mentioned. People don't know about this particular role. Like I said, I'm not laying out no history. I'm not writing a history book. I'm just trying to create elaboration and clarification. And so, you know what? I said, that's right. That's what I'm going to do. I'm gonna do it just like that, you know.
So Baba, shout out some of those sisters. Who are some of those sisters that you write about in your book?
So we're writing about both of Garvey's wives.
Beautiful.
Right? Both of his wives should be mentioned. Amy Ashwood Garvey and Amy Jock Garvey. Right? They're supposed to be mentioned because, make no mistake about it, even though their relationship and friendship came to an end and it should not have.
You're talking about with the first wife, correct?
Yeah, Amy Ashwood was Garvey's first wife.
Right.
Amy Jock was his second wife.
Right.
Their relationship never should have came to an end, but it did. That's another conversation, though.
All right.
Both of them went on to become strong Pan-Africanists in their own right. Both of them. You know, now I know a lot of time Amy Ashwood isn't mentioned because, once again, that's because how we are, you know, because her and Garvey had a falling out, then many people just got a issue with her. You know what I'm saying? She fell out with Garvey. I'm falling out with her. You know what I'm saying? But I don't roll that way in history. See? And that's why I learned the things that I learned, because I'm not falling out with somebody. I'm trying to figure out what was your contributions. How did you contribute to us as a people, right? She was phenomenal in what she did. Phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? Powerful on 3 continents, instructional, leading people, had relationships with Namni Azikiwe. She was one of his advisors. You know what I'm saying? He goes on to become the first prime minister of Nigeria. You know what I'm saying? So she was phenomenal in her role, but she's typically cast to the side. You know what I'm saying? But I don't cast that sister to the side. You know, so yeah, Amy Ashwood Garvey is spoken about. Amy Jock Garvey is spoken about. Another one who people don't see her Pan-African side is Mary McLeod Bethune.
I knew you was going to say that, and you're right, because I never thought of it until you mentioned it, Baba. But go ahead.
Cloud Bethune,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying, was standing in the sphere of Pan-Africanism. Now she comes into it like most people later in her life, but she comes into it and she's strong in it.
Mm-hmm.
And she's strong in it. You know what I'm saying? So you have that. You got Anna Julia Cooper. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times, because we don't know about her, she's being kind of co-opted and pulled all the way into the quote unquote feminist side.
Yes.
And people tend to think that she's just quote unquote feminist. She was at the first Pan-African conference. She was there. You know what I'm saying? She stands in the Pan-African world. You know what I'm saying? They was using the term in the early 20s and stuff like they was using Black internationalism. But when you go and see the person who coined that, which is a Black woman out of France, you go see a Black woman coin Black internationalism. When you look her up and read what she meant by it, you'll see that her sentiments links and syncs with Pan-Africanism. She was just in France, and she just used the term Black internationalism. You know what I'm saying? So I mentioned her briefly, Anna Julia Cooper, Anna Hunt Jones. Anna Hunt Jones. Powerful, instrumental in this thing we call Pan-Africanism. Strong, right? Case in point. She was at the first Pan-African conference, Anna Hunt Jones. She delivered a paper, and her paper was about the individuality of the races, preserving the individuality of the races. You know why? She was so visionary. She saw the destruction of integration. She knew that if we integrated, we gave up our individuality as a race, it was going to have harmful effects upon us. And we're talking about in the year 1900, before we even used the term integration. She's delivering a paper at the Pan-African Conference on that. She's talking about.
I'm listening, Bob. I'm in my zone. I'm listening. Bob, I'm listening. Bob, let me ask Bob, let me ask you this. Why did they make this shift from conference? Because I think it was like one Pan-African conference, correct? Like one, it was one or two. And then they moved it from conference to then they started saying congresses. Remember, like it was just like, I think one Pan-African conference, and then it moved to congresses. Like
no,
what was the...
So that's a great point. It's not that it moved to that. That's just what, so that's I'm glad you brought that up. So the conference was organized by the African Association, which is Henry Sylvester Williams' organization. That was organized in 1900. So the Pan-African Congress, the first one, is in the year 1919. That's Du Bois.
Right, that's Du Bois.
So that's why it's two different folks.
And so with the conference, it was like one or two of them, correct?
Yeah, it was only one conference.
It was only one conference. Gotcha.
Only one conference. You know, and the thing is, and that's why, like on the back of this book, on the back of my book, because there wasn't space to put it inside the book. And what I said is that I said for many people, many Black people, when they think about Pan-Africanism, they think about W. Du Bois. Although an exceptional Black intellectual who had dealings with Pan-Africanism, W. Du Bois is not the face of Pan-Africanism. However, Du Bois was instrumental in keeping the ideal of Pan-Africanism alive by launching the Pan-African Congresses. You know what I'm saying? So because most people can't go before those Congresses, most people associate Pan-Africanism solely with Du Bois. And because Du Bois had these integrationist leanings, that's why people got an issue with Pan-Africanism, because they think it's Du Bois. Right. It's not Du Bois. It predates Du Bois.
But Bob, I'm gonna be honest with you. A lot of people think it's Garvey when you say Pan-Africanism. I mean, people they when you mention Pan-Africanism, people connect that with a lot of folks that I've run across, Baba. They'll think it's Garvey. You said they connected with Du Bois. But a lot of folks that I've run across, they connect that with Garvey. You say Pan-Africanism, they think it's Garvey. And I'm like, no. This was going on, way before Garvey. You see what I'm saying, Baba?
Mm-hmm. So you got people that does that as well, that think that, and then you have a branch of the UNIA people who don't even think Garvey was. They don't even put Garvey in the same boat as Pan-Africanism, because once again, Garvey and Du Bois had their issue.
That's true.
To them, Du Bois was representing Pan-Africanism, so they feel like Pan-Africanism was anti-Garveyism. So you got that that's going on too. So that's why I felt the need to just write the book, to just create the clarification and let people know Du Bois is not the face of Pan-Africanism. And yes, he was instrumental in keeping the idea alive. He organized what? The first Pan-African Congress, the second. He was a part of the second. Let me be corrected, right? He was instrumental in the first, but he needed that woman who I was talking about not too long ago to help him do a lot of things. And in fact, let me say something with you from the book. So in fact, that lady, the black lady that I'm talking about, she was so powerful that she was instrumental in helping to organize these Pan-African Congresses. Oftentimes they're left out of that. So in those Pan-African Congresses, it was black women that played a part in them also. So I wanted to highlight that. For instance, Addie Waite Hunton, right? It's a black woman who she was a president of several organizations, but they was instrumental in making sure that the fourth Pan-African Congress happened. They pretty much organized the whole Congress. A black woman, so that's more so what it's about, understanding like how black women was instrumental in this area, and not just at the congresses, but in the whole Pan-African sphere. I'm talking about the intellectual and radical and political sphere of what it means to be a Pan-Africanist. And most of those women used the term Black internationalism, and they talked about, the emancipation of the race. They phrased it that way in that time period. We talking about the early 1900s,
right?
So they used that type of language, So it's very important that we understand all of that.
Yeah, and I want to say this to the brother Ronnie in the building, Ronnie Thomas. He said, we're always getting off on the most important thing is freedom, no matter whose face is on it. We need to stop this thing between black man and woman. I want to say this, Ronnie, wrong platform. We don't do that over here. And we it's about balance, and it's about giving people their just due. So it's not this wrong platform. You see what I'm saying, family? This the wrong platform. It's not about getting off on, the most important thing is freedom, and it doesn't matter whose face. It's about giving people their just due. So there were women who were instrumental in shaping Pan-Africanism, and those women should be included. I mean, that's what it's about. And I love Baba's remark. He said one of the biggest errors we make when documenting our story is the Eurocentric way we erase the contributions and impact of black women. And he said, "Great job, Baba." So it's not about that. It's not about, like you said, I agree that freedom is what's most important, but it's about giving people their just due. And if those women were instrumental in shaping Pan-Africanism, then their contributions should be included and not ignored. Okay, but we don't do the gender wars over here. That's wrong platform. Bob, I don't know if you wanted to add to that, or if you want me to close out my last question.
No, I will add to that. The only thing I would add is that's still, when we respond that way, that's still linked to, like I said earlier on, like all the traumas that we've been through, because oftentimes we're not listening clearly to what is being said. Like we hear something, and it's a trigger go off. The trigger is the trauma, and so there's a response, and we can't see it, because if you systematically ignore a segment of society, that's harm that's being done to that segment of society. Now, when you put it inside the race, when you say you got a race, so if there's a systematic process that ignores a segment of a race of people, right? That's harm. And what I say in my book, I do speak to that, because I make the clarification. I say, because true Pan-Africanists are not going to leave black women out, but revisionist scholars and reductionist intellectuals who have taken it upon themselves to write most of the history will do that. They will do that. So yes, we do have revisionist scholars who want to revise history, and we have reductionist intellectuals who want to reduce it to what they want it to be. And in doing so, attempt to do what? Silence and erase the black woman's role. Why? Because the society is a society that honors the white man. You know what I'm saying? So it's like man becomes the dominant image in all things, right? So therefore, we got to make sure that, you know, the women is held down, right? So in the book, I say it's even. That's why I elevate Alex Kinlock, because for years when we talk about the beginning of Pan-Africanism, everybody say him and Sylvester Williams, everybody, right? But I wanted to elevate and say, yeah, that's great. Yeah, he most definitely was instrumental, but he wasn't by himself, you know.
That part, Baba.
So I want to elevate Alex Kinlock because she was there, you know. And it's not about saying, well, she did this, he did that. It's not neither he or there. And that's what I say in my book. It's about equal balance, because when we see how we move and we notice and we really look, we're going to see we moving with the power of each other. Case in point, there is no way Du Bois could have did what he did with the first Congress in Paris. Du Bois not no fluent. He didn't speak fluent French. He wasn't fluent in French. So
right,
who was doing all the talking for him, right?
Right.
A black woman. Ida Hunt Gibbs. Look her up.
Teach Baba.
Ida Hunt Gibbs is the one who was instrumental at facilitating Du Bois's ability to communicate, I think, with the prime minister of Paris to make this thing happen. It was her. She was the primary person. She was the one that was doing all the communicating and talking, because she was fluent in French, because her and her husband were already international in their travels. So she had already traveled internationally, and what she noticed is that black people are oppressed wherever they are in the world. So that's how she stepped into the Pan-African sphere, because of that. She noticed it. Well, her husband, like, damn, everywhere we go, we see us at the bottom of the rug. And it bothered that sister. You know what I'm saying? So when it's time to do the Pan-African Congress in 1919, she on it. And she was a part of the first Pan-African Congress, 1919, the second, third, and the fourth. She was in all of them. She was part of all of them. You know, a black woman. So that's the reason why we mention black women, because it was essential for the book. Because do you know how many black women do not know about these 10 black women that I list? It's just 10 of them.
Oh yeah. Oh
so
yeah, Baba.
When black women read this book and they get to that part of reading about those black women, and they're gonna realize, like, wow, man, it's gonna be inspirational to read about what these black women were doing in this time period, how they was thinking, you know, how they was thinking. What's my sister's name? Real quick, there's another one that's so Mitty Maud, Mitty Maud, powerful sister, coming out of Chicago, and she was introduced to the movement through her father, who introduced her to Henry McNeil Turner. So she was a student of race patriotism. So when she heard Garvey, she instantly got on board, became a Garveyite in Chicago, went through the ranks, and became a lady president in Chicago. And she was rocking and rolling in Chicago. And I think around 1929, I think she split for whatever reason. I didn't get into all that, but I think she split.
Right.
But she stayed in the movement. And then around 1931, 32, she birthed another organization. And check this out. This is unheard of, because we always say this right here. We say Garvey built the greatest black nationalist organization in the United States of America, in the world, basically, right? Which is true. You know what I'm saying? But you know what, though? Mitty Maud Gordon built the greatest black nationalist organization that was led and headed up by a black woman. She had 300,000 members. 300,000. And she was cold-blooded. She got arrested in the 1940s. She was so powerful, they locked her up for sedition in the 1940s. You know what I'm saying? This sister was trying to get us to Africa. She put a petition together, and she submitted the petition to FDR, and she said, listen, we trying to get about this place. This is the petition. And she had 300,000 signatures. Bad black woman. What sister don't need to know about her?
Come on, teach.
What sister don't need to know about her? So we can know what we need to be doing out here.
That's right. That's right.
right?
And Dr. Assar, I appreciate, what you're saying. He said, I understand the trauma. He said, but this isn't that kind of platform. This isn't a feminist gender war platform. He said, if anything, Africana womanist, which is all inclusive of the man, woman, and child. Ashe, Doc. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hey, Baba, I want to close out on this. What are your thoughts about the internet? You got folks, this anti-African agenda that we are seeing on the internet. You got folks, saying Pan-Africanism is dead. Those aren't our people. We in America, we've been here. we've been over here. We don't have nothing in common with those folks. Pan-Africanism is dead. It's never benefited us. It's never been a reciprocal thing. What do you say to that? Because it's a real big, and that's why I say on social media, anybody that's really doing the work ain't talking like that. But on social media, is these videos are going around. It's like really an anti-African agenda, a strong one happening on an internet where you have folks who look like you and I, who want to disconnect with their Africanity, right? And say, I've always been over here in America, or I've always been in the UK, or I've always been in Europe. Well, you really don't hear them talking like that. You don't hear the African folks talking like that over there in the UK and Europe. You mainly hear it over here, really, from what I've seen, from my viewpoint. You hear it over here, with people trying to, disconnect with, our African brothers and sisters in the diaspora and on the continent, and saying Pan-Africanism is dead. And ain't no unity. They hate us. What do you say to all of that stuff, Baba?
So the first thing I'll say is this. I'm gonna say Black insanity. And for those of you that's looking, if you want to know more, I'm not gonna get deep into Black insanity, but if you have a desire to know more about what I mean by Black insanity, just hit me up and I can get you information on that. So Black insanity is what we're dealing with. And the feature of Black insanity particularly is the feature that has disorientated our thinking. We no longer think in the best interest of us. All right? We think in ways that are socially, economically, politically, educationally, and culturally anti-us. We've been successfully conditioned to find reasons not to champion us. Right? That's Black insanity. And part of that is we typically use terms like self-hatred and stuff like that, but a lot of times it's hard to get a person to understand the self-hatred because, it's complex. So I think it's easier to get to the insanity, right? And for me, insanity is very simple, right? Because any natural thing in existence is always going to operate in its best interest. If you watch animals are not necessarily going to allow themselves to just be captured. We might can outthink them, but they're not going to allow themselves. They're not just walking in there. They're not doing anything that's diabolical to themselves. They're not inflicted it upon themselves. Even the fish, everything, even bees, you spring, everything gonna get away. Nothing in nature operates against its best interest. So insanity becomes the intentional and the perpetual thought, speech, and action by Black people that work against their best interest.
Sound like menticide, Baba. That's what it sounds like you're describing to me.
All of that. But see, menticide, the reason I don't use menticide because Bobby Wright defines that, and he defines it as being the systematic destruction of the mind of a people, right? Mm-hmm. I'm defining an actual effect of what we are actually doing. So that's why I didn't use his term, because like I said, he give a nice definition. He says it's the systematic destruction of the people's mind. So yes, at the end, our end result of menticide is going to be Black insanity. You know what I'm saying? So Black insanity is going to come out of that, and then we're going to begin to see it being manifested in the behaviors. So now you see us doing what? You see us laying around on the streets. I don't know if you probably seen this, but I seen it online. One of the Wally moves just talked about it. Wally Move, Losi, Lumumba. I seen it driving up Liberty Road. Now you got Black women laying on the ground. You see what I'm saying? Letting animals lick them between their legs. Right? That's pure insanity. That's pure insanity. That was a time period we didn't do nothing like that. Even our dope fiends wouldn't have did nothing like that.
That's a fact, Baba. That's
Even
a
our
fact.
dope fiends wasn't going to do that. You know what I'm saying? But now we do anything. You know what I'm saying? We do anything.
And I think, and I've said this, Baba, and I, you know, privately, and I think I may have said it publicly. Dr. Samuels, let me know if you heard me say it, because I know Dr. Sam was always watching. Baba, I know you said we'll do anything, and you call it Black insanity. Is it, Baba? We're becoming just like them. We, like you said, like I said, the longer we stay in America, right? And I understand that some people don't want to repatriate, and you know, people say, "Well, I want to stay here and fight. I built this nation. My ancestors are here." I get all that, but the longer we stay in America, and we are culturally dominated by them, right? And we're educated by them, we become more and more like them, Baba. And so I'm thinking, I know you're calling it Black insanity. I'm seeing Eurocentric insanity, that we're literally adopting their psychopathologies. That's what I'm seeing. Now you got Black folks, like literally at Morgan, 5 kids shot. That never had. That wasn't what we don't do stuff like that, Baba, on college campuses. Shoot, we don't. That's not us. But the longer, Baba, we stay here and we're culturally dominated by them, we're educated by them, we're inundated with media by them, we're becoming more and more like them. We're becoming, as Baba Baruti would say, out of our African minds, literally. And being out of your African mind is becoming insane. And so I just wanted to add that tidbit, Baba, that I believe that I wholeheartedly believe that Black insanity is what we're experiencing. And Baba, you got to write another book. I know I keep saying, I know you like, let's promote this one. I'm thinking about the Black insanity book right now, Baba. You know, I can't wait. I hope that you do consider writing a book about Black insanity. Family, before you get out of here, make sure that you thumb up the video, thumb it up, thumb it up, thumb it up. Also, family, make sure you subscribe. Make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Truth to Power Talk with Dr. Ma'at, and hit the notification bell so that whenever I go live, you will be notified. And Dr. Craig Samuels, he put in the link. A lot of the moderators have been putting in the link to your book, Baba, in the chat. Family, click on the book right now. Dr. Craig Samuels, please drop the link right now. Okay, I want everybody to click on this link. Grab this book now, family. Grab this book now. Click on the link. Grab it right now. Okay. Dr. Craig Samuels says, yes, Doc, you made those statements a few times. Thank you, Dr. Samuels. Yeah, man, we becoming just like them, just becoming black-skinned Europeans, man. And it's bananas. But Baba, people are asking in the chat, how can they connect with you? They want to connect with you.
So I'm gonna put an email in there. Just email me. So it's plmbaltimore@gmail.com. So that plmbaltimore@gmail.com. So
all right, I'm gonna put it on the screen, Baba.
Yep.
And Dr. Samuels is putting in the link to his book, family. Click it on now. I know Sister Marcia Pender said, give me 2 books. Sister Marcia Pender, inbox me. I got the 2 books for you. Baba, I got to come snatch them from you.
Okay.
Yeah, I get up with Baba this week, and I'll make sure, Sister Marcia Pender, that you get them. All right, because she said she homeschools. So she said that's going to be their summer reading. Sister Marcia Pender, would be great to bring those teenagers on to talk about Baba's book after you finish going through it with them over the summer. Baba, do you have any closing words for the listening audience? Any closing words?
Yes, my closing words will be, I'm going to pretty much paraphrase Baba Takar Kilimanjaro. I'll paraphrase him because I think it's a profound thing that he has been saying. I know since I began to see him posting it, it's been about probably like 10 years now. But he always talk about the need to master your craft. Master your craft. And so what I'm going to say is this. The only way we can be better as a people is that we each seek to deepen our knowledge and awareness. Let's not assume that we have arrived at anything. Let's keep digging, keep digging, keep digging, and keep digging. Don't cut no corners. Don't take no shortcuts. Don't try to rush. You know what I'm saying? Don't try to get all this information that I have in one session. This is a lifetime right here. So me sitting up here talking, because I didn't take no shortcuts. I didn't cut no corners. I put my time in and I went through my process. So don't do that. Go through your process. Put your time in, go through your process. So we won't get caught up in the misconceptions and the confusions and the ignorance. We'll be very clear about who we are and what Pan-Africanism is, because that's the ideology for Black people. Make no mistake about that. That's the ideology for Black people. You know, that's the one that's going to get us where we need to be as a group of people. You know, all this other stuff is promotional stuff. It's commercial stuff. Everything else is somebody is trying to enrich themselves. That's what all this other stuff is. And that's the reason why everybody got to keep something controversial going on, right? Because they playing on our trauma again. I got to say something controversial about Pan-Africanism and prop this thing up over here so I can create for and against. And then I'm going to tell you, you know what I'm saying, that I got it, then you give me all the money. And that's what's happening to us, right? So don't cut no corners. Master your craft. Know our history. Know who we are. Nothing that I said in this book right here, you know, nothing that I said in this book is inaccurate, right? Because when I'm talking about Henry Sylvester Williams, I'm using his words. When I'm talking about the Pan-African Conference, I use their words. Not my words, I use their words. I use the agenda that they put in place for that particular day. I use what they said. So get the book, read the book, study the book. And let's hold
it up together, Baba. So I'm gonna take this and screenshot this. We hold this up together. Ashe. So family, make sure. Hold on, let me drop a ball for Baba. Baba dropped so many jewels. You know what I mean? Fire! 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 Family. Click on that link. Dr. Craig Samuels put the link to Baba's book. Click it. Click on the link. And also, family, hit me up. Let me put my email address in here. All right. Make sure you all hit me up at dr.maat.msu@gmail.com. Okay. And if you hit me up, if I have some more copies to give you, I'll make sure that you have one. I only have 10. 2 are already gone. Right. So that's 8 more. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. We'll drop the email in the chat. Even on IG, I see my IG family is in the building. IG family, head on over to YouTube. Subscribe to Truth to Power Talk with your sister, Dr. Ma'at. Baba, someone said in the chat they feel like they just attended a college class. I think it was Sister Marcia Pender. She said, I feel like I just attended a college seminar. Absolutely, Mama. That's what we do over here. That's what we do over here. This is the real high level thinking platforms. No shot at 19 keys. This is the real high level thinking platform over here. And Dr. Craig Samuel said, yes. Dr. Takai Kilimanjaro says that regularly perfect your craft, take no shortcut. And Bob, it's funny listening to you say that because shout out to Mr. Andre Lewis over at Morgan State School of Engineering. That's what he often tells the students. You got to master your craft. You can't take engineering and you can't take shortcuts to becoming an engineer. You got to put your hands on it. So I told you, Baba, when you come through and you speak, it's all in alignment. It's all in alignment. So again, Baba, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us this evening. Family, thank you. I want to thank everybody who showed up, showed out, you commented, you subscribed, or you shared this discussion. So I want to thank you, right? Because you didn't have to be here tonight, but you were. And so I thank you for your minds. All right, Baba, you already said your closing words. So you out of there? You gone or? You got, One last thing. I felt it, Baba. I felt it.
It's something I shared today at the Kimoyo School Africana, right? With the young people. And I'm going to share this, and this for everybody. This even for you. This is for you. This is for me. It's for everybody.
All right.
So we come to the world in a unique vessel, and we call that vessel the human body. The human body houses our essence. So our essence travels in the human body. But our task is to outgrow and expand outside of this human vessel. Our essence is designed to impact the world. That's the only way you live forever. If you don't grow out and beyond this vessel, when you die, you are dead. If you can manage to understand how to grow out your essence beyond the physical vessel, when you die, you live.
No, Baba, that's powerful. Oh, here we go. I knew this person was pulling up. I knew as soon as they saw the title, Baba, talking about scan Africanism. That Lawson, man, you keep saying that stuff. And this is family, by the way, Baba. We do this. Lawson, you keep saying this and then you scared to pull up. Baba and I have been talking about Pan-Africanism for a whole 90 minutes, and you come at the 11th hour wanting to talk trash. Talk trash next Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want you to click the link. Click the link and cross the line, Lawson. Click the link and cross the line next Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hit me up, Lawson, at dr.maat.msu@gmail.com so we can set up a time for you to come on. Baba, that was very, very profound. Thank you so much. A BB Fahodie to you, Baba. All right, family, make sure you heard from Baba. You heard from our great Baba. Family, get his book. And I'm not just saying it. I got it. And I grabbed 10 copies. All right. So the first person who contacts me at dr.maat, I'm going to put it in there again, dr.maat.msu@gmail.com. I'm going to put it on the screen so you see it, family. The first set of people, okay, who contact me, I'll send you the book. Matter of fact, Lawson, I need to send you the book since you're talking about scan Africanism. You don't even know what you're talking about. All right. It's coming from a place of ignorance. No, matter of fact, I want you to pull up so I can beat you up with the book. All right. I'm going to beat you up with the information on the book. And then I'll send you the book. All right. After I beat you down with the book. Okay. After I beat you down with the book. Hold on. What did he say? What Lawson talking about? Tell that to the Africans fleeing the Africa and drove. See, that don't have nothing to do with Pan-Africanism. You don't even see Lawson. See Lawson. Come back next week. I'm going to read Baba Imhotep's whole book again. I'm going to read it again, and I'll beat you up next week at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then I'm going to send you a copy. And I'm dead serious, Lawson. My email address, family, is in the chat. All right. I see my IG families in the building. Make sure that you take a screenshot of my email address. The first people to hit me up for a book, I'm going to make sure you have one, except for you, Lawson. You ain't getting one. Except for you, Lawson. You ain't getting one. I'm going to beat you up with the information in the book, and then I'm going to mail you a free copy. So, family, I only have 7 copies because I'm going to put one up for Lawson, okay? I'm going to put one up for Lawson. So make sure that you hit me up at dr.maat.msu@gmail.com. Somebody keeps saying, I want to connect with Baba Imhotep. He dropped his email address, family, in the chat. Where is it? He dropped it. I'm going to put it on the screen. Here it is. You keep saying, I want to hook up with him. There it is right there. plmbaltimore@gmail.com. 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 That's his email address. All right. I see the sister right here. She said, I need a copy of that book. Sounds very compelling. Much reverence and respect. You got it, sis. Just email me and just say, Doc, I need a copy of the book. All right. And I got you. All right. Hit up Bob at plmbaltimore@gmail.com. Folks keep saying, I want to connect with him. He put his email address in here 50 times. No, it wasn't 50 times. I over-exaggerate, but he did. Here it is right here, family. plmbaltimore@gmail.com. All right. And make sure you click that link. All right. We don't want to just be trying to get free books, man. Brother, we got to support people with our resources. Everybody want to get a free book. Click the link. All right. Click the link and grab the book. All right, family. And make sure that you pull up on me. That's what the young folks say. Make sure that you pull up next Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Before you get out of here, family, the only thing I want you to do is make sure that you share this discussion. Share this discussion. Share this discussion. All right. I lied. I said it was one thing. Share the discussion and also head on over to consciousingenuity.org to get your child enrolled in our youth empowerment programs. And if you missed the beginning of this discussion, I showed you all of the youth empowerment programs at the beginning of this discussion. So make sure that you double back. All right, family, have a blessed Memorial Day. And for those who say, I don't celebrate that, Dr. Maat, I ain't celebrating it. Memorial Day was founded by Black people. So have a blessed Memorial Day. Peace and Black excellence.
Right beside the darts of the plan. We'll store that.
Let me know in the chat if you hear the sound.
The new knowledge is power. My boy prayer. Knowledge is power, and power is knowledge. Break the chains and experience the knowledge. Find power in power, and truth in knowledge. Once you know, no one can take your knowledge. I read book after book, studying the power, spent hour after hour, learning black power, destroying lie after lie. For the power found self in these pages of conceptual power. I found the truth and I'm not letting go. Frederick Douglass and Booker T found power. Nat Turner found truth in his darkest hour. Mama Harriet set us free and stood for we. In these pages I found power in our history. UEP birthed the Panther in me. In me, never let a fascist pig carry me, not me. Revolutionary thoughts, all I read. Normal for my soul, keep my spirit on high. Revolutionary thought is always on the rise. Yeah, is always on the rise. Love. Knowledge is power, and power is knowledge. Break the chains and experience the knowledge. Find power in power, and truth in knowledge. Once you know, no one can take your knowledge. I read book after book, studying the power, spent hour after hour, learning black power, destroyed lie after lie. For the power found self in these pages of conceptual power. Our problem was never us, our problems was them. Them being the ones who robbed and took us, kings and queens, nation builders. From stolen legacy to Anthony Browder, building institutions with black knowledge. Build black libraries for black scholars, building black minds, urban philosophy, urban black reads every one place. Black owned bookstores, we support your space. To all black authors, we give much thanks. Knowledge is power, and power is knowledge. Break the chains and experience the knowledge. Find power in power, and truth in knowledge. Once you know, no one can take your knowledge. I read book after book, studying the power, spent hour after hour, learning black power, destroyed lie after lie. For the power found self in these pages of conceptual power. Our problem was never us. Our problem was never us. Our problem was never us. Knowledge is power, our power is knowledge. Break the chains and experience the knowledge. Find power in power, and truth in knowledge. Once you know, no one can take your knowledge.